Good morning, everybody. Welcome back to Coding on Swiboe, the next generation text editor, or as I like to say, the text editor for the second half of my career. It is Monday, therefore we had a long weekend after us, and so a lot of stuff has happened, and that means that we have some top of the show business. Let's start out with the stuff that I was working on over the weekend. So I actually wrote the first request for comments for Swiboe, finally nailing down some of the details for the layered RPC system. And it is a request for comments, so I would really appreciate more comments. We already have a couple. And it was also interesting. Basically what we have in Swiboe right now is an approximation of what I wrote down here, but we already know that some of the stuff that we have in Swiboe already will not be sufficient. So I expanded a little bit on the scope, and I'm really interested if it is still understandable or not. So if you have a minute or two, just swing by at this pull request and read through it, leave comments, and we can really, I would really like to get that really good and really correct, because that is basically like the core of Swiboe, right? We really have to get it right. Okay, so another thing I did over the weekend is unify error types. That is the pull request we actually started on, Greg and I started on together, and I just cleaned it up. Basically what we did is we consolidated some of the distinct error types that we had in Swiboe and merged them together into one. And I think it actually improved the code. That's really nice. And a small follow-up pull request that I did on that was actually removing, what did I do here? I removed a separate enum and merged the error type and the enum kind that it had together. So basically we had this structure error that only contained an error type, error kind, and I removed this structure and made what was formerly error kind into error. Then we also had contributions. So Matthias actually worked on updating our dependency onto Rust Lua and pulled that up to master, which is really nice. Thanks for that. That is not yet merged, but we will merge it throughout the week. And then what else do I have? So I mentioned this. Oh, and I wanted to plug our Gitter chat finally. I think I never did on stream. We have had that for a while, and it's pretty active. Not terribly active, but pretty active. And there's some interesting discussions going on. Right now we're discussing if we should have a fixed format for commit messages. So if you are interested in that, just swing by and leave a comment. Oh, and of course you're also more than welcome to just hang out. There are a couple of people already here that hang out regularly. Okay, and I think that is all for the top of the show business. So let's move this one out here. And let's get started. Oh, I had one more question, right? Do you people experience stream lag? Does the stream stutter sometimes? Some friends of mine said that they occasionally had stream lag when they were watching my stream, and I was interested if that is a common thing or if this is just because, I don't know, because they have bad internet, no lag. Part says he has no lag, so it's probably not my internet that's the problem. Okay, so where were we? We were working on the C client, respectively the Python client, which is the same thing, right? We rep for C and then we rep that for Python. Here we go. we had it always the other way around. So on the left is the Python code, on the right is the corresponding Rust code. And we want to continue working on that today. Though I realized that we already have quite some code and it's getting rather complicated, and also master has progressed a little bit. So what I want to do first is actually I want to merge master so that we are up to date with the latest and greatest on master. And also after the stream I actually want to make this into a pull request. Of course it's not yet done, but there's no such thing as a too small pull request. And then I want to make regular pull requests to the upstream repo, so Swiboe on GitHub, so that we actually always have the latest stuff in master, because otherwise the code gets bigger and bigger, and the poor reviewers will not have a chance to understand it anymore. So let's build and see if that works. So I actually built before. So let's merge master. And what does it say? It actually says that we have a merge conflict in source lib. So this must be this one. And what do I see here? Actually, yes, we actually added licensing and master. We want to keep that. And of course, we need the feature result expect. So we want to keep that too. And that's all the merge requests we had. That is remarkably simple. And let's build again. Build done. No associated item named connect found for type Swiboe client in the current scope. That is correct, because actually I remember 2 weeks ago, I think nearly, we merged, we actually merged this TCP IP support. Yes, so the client can also communicate over TCP, and then I actually split those two functions. So what used to be connect is now connect Unix for Unix domain sockets and connect TCP for TCP. I actually probably think that should go back to only being one, and then basically we look at the string that we get, and if it is an address we use TCP, otherwise we use Unix domain sockets. But for now we keep it like this. Basically, instead of here right now we only do connect Unix, and we're building, and then let's see where this is going. Okay, so that compiled. So let's see if it still runs. I think there was in a runnable state, right? So what do? We create a couple of clients, 50 to be exact, then we call 100 times. Each client calls 100 times a RPC, and then we disconnect. Yeah, so that should be working. So we already have a server running here, but just to make extra sure, yeah, we actually, wow, that was good, because of course we merged, so the server changed a bit. So if we tried that, we would probably not have gotten the results that we wanted. Who knows? Still compiling. And after that, how do we continue actually? So the Rust part now has a little more error handling. So I was thinking if we actually should also look into error handling in the C part. I mean, we have to eventually, of course, but maybe for now we will just trooper on with the RPCs, I think. Okay, compilation is done. Let's run it, and Oh, so interesting. It works most of the time, but it crashes. But that's a good thing about Rust. You can actually, if it crashes, you just look at the unsafe stuff, and then you can figure out what is actually creating the problem. So what's happening here? So we transmute the client that we get back, which is a client. We transmute that. That is fine. That is fine. That seems fine too. That is fine. RPC not handled is the same. That's also fine. That seems correct. Wait. This is no longer correct. This is no longer correct because client call here, client call, which is this function here, actually now returns a result of a context. And that shows the power and the danger of unsafe, right? Basically what we tell it here is, please call this, this function that returns a result object, and then we box it up, and then we say, now that you have a pointer, please transmute it into a pointer to a client RPC context. And of course, that is just no longer correct, right? Basically, what we want here is something like, we have the RPC, or the RPC context, like so. Context, like so. And we actually unwrap that here, and we add our normal command that we need error handling here. And now basically that makes all the difference, right? We unwrap it, so now we actually have not the we have the pointer. Sorry, we don't have the result anymore. We actually have the RPC context itself. And now if we wrap it up like this, then this should be a transmute that is safe, that transmutes from the correct pointer type to the correct pointer type. So where else do we have unsafe? That is correct. Unsafe here. That is also correct. And this is also correct. So I think that should be it. Run. Apparently not. Didn't I rebuild? Or is that another problem? What's up? What is going on? Let's try again. Seems like I didn't get all of them. Seems like I still have some issues in here. Interesting. Swiboe RPC error. That is fine. That is fine. That is fine too. That is correct. Do I have to change anything in the Python part? Did anything change here? No. Okay. Okay. Seems like I have to spend a little more time on that. Apparently we somehow introduced some bugs. I can't find them on stream right now. So let's forget the whole merging thingy. I will do that offline and look into that and then figure out what's wrong, and we can try it again tomorrow. So let's troop on with functionality. I wonder if it's actually like some fundamental crashy thingy, or if we actually have some race condition somewhere. That is really unfortunate that it's not working. So let's see actually if we recompile, if it still works. That is our C library without any changes. Let's see if that still works. And then we can continue on. With what actually do we want to continue on? We can call now. We can call other RPCs. We can wait for those other RPCs. But we cannot call RPCs in this callback here. Actually, I think we want to change this callback to have a to get an RPC context, and then we will actually be able to work on that. Okay, so let's test this one again and see if it works. Great. So whatever the issues are that we introduced through the merge, they are not already in our branch yet. That is good news. Okay, so let's change the callback to not only take the arguments, but actually also take an RPC context here, right? And that is actually not the client context that we already wrapped. That will actually be the server context. So let's change the callback call, which is, where is it called? RPC, right here. So that is now taking it returns a result. Probably not for long though. Probably we will handle that through the RPC context as well. But for now, it takes a pointer to an RPC context. What is actually calling returning? Return types is a client context, right? So let's call this thingy up here not RPC context, but pointer to server context. That is better, I think. And then we have a server context here, and that's of course also a void pointer like this. And I think that's already plenty for the moment. So where is the C callback defined? So in Rust code, we also have to update that and say, well, we now take a mutable RPC client RPC server context, and that's nearly it. So this callback actually, so we of course we get this server context, we get it here, right? So we only have to transmute this into a pointer and pass it to the callback. That also means though that the callback cannot hold on to that. That's difficult. I'm not quite sure how to handle that. Or maybe we don't have to handle it. Right. We just box it up. That's what we do, right? Basically we say we get our context here, and then we get the context, and then we actually have to box this context up, right? So we say a box of context, and that is this here. And then we cannot use this one down here, but we can actually use the box itself, right? And when we call the callback here, we just transmute. We just say let's box context, or just let's call it context pointer, and that is unsafe, of course. Oh, we don't have to do that because we're already in an unsafe block. Mem transmute box context, and we transmute it to a mutable pointer to client RPC server context. And then the callback gets, what does the callback get? It gets that as first argument, right? Like so. And I think that's probably already it. So we pass that through, but of course we can't do anything with it yet. Cannot borrow immutable box content, of course. That is something I really like about Rust, that everything is immutable by default. Use of moved value box context. Interesting. We move it in 130, which is where? Here. Why do you say that? Box context moved here because it has type box Swiboe client RPC context, which is non-copyable. That is correct, but interesting. So what it is saying is that this transmute actually consumes the box. So what can I do something like this? Basically say like, please dereference this box and then take immutable reference to the content and transmute that without like passing ownership. Yes, that works. Okay, so let's run the test again and wow. What did we do? What did we change? That is really weird. Why is it now not working anymore? It seems like it's perfectly safe. Everything here should be perfectly safe. Basically, all we do is we transmute the contents of the box into a context pointer and we pass that as the first argument to the callback. Once the callback comes back, our context pointer is still completely valid and our box context has actually been dropped, right? So basically what is if I just say, well, I ignore this line and here I pass something like on, like not ignore it, but like just make it a null pointer. However you do that. How do you make a null pointer in Rust? Rust nightly pointer. Let's have a look. What's going on? Why is that so badly formatted? Interesting. Let's try that again. Chrome pointer. Nope, doesn't want. What about null? Pointer creates a null raw pointer. See, that is exactly what I want. Standard pointer null. Okay, so let's say we just make this here a standard pointer null. Is complaining that this one is a mutable pointer while that returns as a const pointer. I don't really care that much, I don't think. But of course that doesn't work. So let's be brutal and just say like let's standard transmute this const pointer into a mutable pointer. And unable to infer enough type information about underscore, type annotations, or generic parameter binding required. Why it doesn't like that? Why doesn't it like that? Hi Nobina, I don't get the question. Could you rephrase maybe? I'm curious to know what operating system is used at your work's office computers. Or, I mean, at work we use Linux. This, of course, oh, there's null mute. That's actually what we want here. I'm not at work right now, so I'm not using Linux. Does that answer the question? Okay. I don't believe it. What is going on? What did I mess up? It seems like we didn't change anything, right? All we did is we actually changed this context, like we introduced this context pointer, and this context pointer is always null and then we pass it to our callback and we don't do anything with it, and the callback is still returning the same stuff. So where is actually our RPC defined, right? Our RPC takes it returns a result pointer, we didn't change that, and it takes now a server context pointer, we changed this, but we don't do anything with it. So I have the feeling as if maybe there has already been a bug lurking in our code before. Now I try to force this bug out of hiding. Basically what I did now, I stashed all my changes, so our code is back to where we started this morning. And now I will just restart the server and then try to reproduce the bug on the current code. Callback, called none. Oh, I need to rebuild here too. Aha, there we go. There we go. So it seems like our bug is already in this code. That is interesting. So we have some flakiness in our code that didn't show its ugly head so far. And I wonder where that could actually be. It seems... I'm thinking, can we maybe have a deadlock somewhere? So now it ran through again. Now it's gone again. Interesting. Ah, there it is. So there is some flakiness. And what actually happens is, I mean, this is the only place where we ever wait for an RPC. So we must be blocking somewhere around here. So what that means is that we have some RPC that somehow get stuck. They never get delivered to the client, and the client is never calling its RPC. And I wonder what that could be. That's definitely nothing that is in our Python client here. That is definitely something that is somewhere in Swiboe itself. So we have to dig deeper into finding this bug in the engine itself. No, that's really unfortunate. That means though that we can probably not make too much more progress. It's also interesting that it seems as soon as I apply our changes that we did so far again, right, those no-op changes where we just introduce a new parameter, it seems like it triggers the bug more reliably, which is of course a good thing, right? You always want to have your bugs triggered reliably. I wonder if it's also maybe something, could it have something to do with when Python does actually garbage collection? I don't think it does actually. So what do we do on Swiboe disconnect? On Swiboe disconnect, we drop the client. So no, we never depend on Python's garbage collection. We are always very explicit when we want stuff to be destroyed. So that's probably not it. Ah, now it ran through again. Interesting. Interesting. Ah, now we also got tracebacks. That's really good. So, tons of tracebacks. So we actually somewhere we get a send error because our channels are already closed. So we definitely have a race condition, and that is really interesting to me. Because how can there be a race condition? Right? Basically down here we wait on the RPC context, and that means that all the RPCs must be completely done once we are behind this point, so before disconnecting. And that also means that we can never ever receive more data, so there should not be any race condition. Wow, that's a mystery, isn't it? It is a mystery. Okay, let's continue on with this RPC context thing. We ignore the bug. We have to dig into that a little deeper, but that is not stream material because that will be very confusing, I think. And actually, what I want to change now is that this Swiboe RPC OK, we actually pass it now, or should we actually? Should we pass it the RPC context? I think we should probably, right? Like basically changing this code to not, sorry, to return anything, but except instead doing something like Swiboe RPC OK, and then we pass it like this, and this will basically call Swiboe, will call RPC OK on this RPC context, and once that is done, then this context is no longer valid. So basically right now, RPC context is no longer valid, right? We basically consume it in some sense. And then we don't need this return statement anymore. And I think that's actually a little better because that mirrors exactly how the RPC works in the Rust world. So in the Rust world, when we get the context, so if we look at the call function, in our RPC, it gets the context, and basically it ends itself with the context.finish at the end. So we could also do that. That's even more symmetric. Basically saying, well, we keep the Swiboe RPC OK like it is down here. So basically we say our result here is this one, and then we call Swiboe RPC context finish. That takes the RPC context and takes the result, like so. I think that is probably the best solution for now, and then we don't return anything anymore. And we already have in Rust that if you don't call context finish, then it will actually blow up. It will complain that you didn't call finish on an RPC context, and that is precisely what we want. So Swiboe RPC OK then still seems correct, but instead of returning a value, so basically our RPC now no longer returns a value. Here it doesn't return a value anymore. Instead we need a new function that we call Swiboe RPC context finish. That is actually, we have here a little problem because I used RPC context also for the client context, and we should probably here rename RPC context to either client context or server context, right? That is much better. So here we immediately don't use RPC context, we use server context finish. And here too, we use Swiboe server context finish, right? Okay. And finish, what does it take? It actually takes a pointer to a server context, and it takes a pointer to an RPC result. And does it return anything? Maybe, but not right now. So, which function do we copy and paste? Maybe this one. Basically, what we do is we have a Swiboe server context finish, and it takes as first argument a mutable pointer to an RPC client context. No, RPC where's it? Client RpcServer context. And that's of course not called client. Instead we call it context, and it takes a pointer to an RPC result. And that is also mutable, or it might as well be const to an client, no, to an RPC results, or just result. Is it like this? I think it's like this. Where do we construct one? Here, RPC result. Very nice, very nice. And both of those values will be consumed, right? Like the RPC result is ours, and the context is also ours. And we will also destroy both, because after finish there's nothing else that can be done. So basically what we say is we have a what do we do? Like we say we have a our context here that is unsafe, and we transmute it to a box. Of course not a box of a client, that would be terrible because wrong, but a box of a client RpcServer context, right? And we do exactly the same for our result. Our result is a RPC result, and we transmute in this case the RPC result. And then we call finish. We already called finish somewhere here. And actually I think we need to change this function now, but give me a second to just finish the thought up here. Here, basically, that's all we have to do. We say context finish, and yes, I think that's it, right? We call finish on the context, and we expect that to always work. I'm not quite sure if that can also fail. I guess it can fail if the remote side has already closed the connection, so we actually have to add here our favorite error handling to do. But of course there's one more bug lurking here, and that is actually when we do the call, when we transmute our context in the call here, right? In the call function for the RPC, we get our context pointer. We get the context, and the context, we take ownership of the context, and then we box this one up, and then we actually here we transmute it, but we do not pass ownership, right? We keep ownership here, and that is wrong. We actually have to pass ownership to Python now, because we take it back in this function, right? So like Python has ownership of the RPC context, nobody else can work with that, and once Python wants to call RPC context finish, it actually passes ownership back to us. So while it is correct that we make a box out of that, so the box is now the new owner of the context, in here we actually have to transmute it to a... Ooh, how did that work? Basically, I mean, we must not delete... Yeah, I think we actually already had that, basically saying like so, right? We say we do it like this. We basically say we transmute our box into a raw pointer, and then this box will actually be empty without dropping the context. So I think that's actually correct. So let's build and see where we're going. In line 46, my favorite mistake, semicolons and something that we actually would like to have. And cannot borrow mutable box content. Content is mutable, that is in 35. That is because we say this must be mutable. And now we build this again. And that should work. Apparently not. So what did I mess up? It says that there is no function Swiboe RPC context finish, and that's correct because we have Swiboe server context finish. So it is not Swiboe RPC context finish, it is Swiboe server context finish, like so. And now it says connection refused because I actually terminated the server. And that immediately froze. So what is wrong? Our Swiboe RPC OK seems still correct, so we didn't change anything in Swiboe RPC OK. And now we say Swiboe server context. Actually, oh, I remember what's wrong. Actually, we didn't change our callback type in here, right? So we still have the callback type C callback. That is here, and we still say that it's returning an RPC result, but of course that is no longer true. So we must not ever use this. And do we actually use it? I think we don't actually, because, oh yeah, we do actually. No, we don't do anything anymore here. We just call the function, and there's absolutely no value that we return from our call. So let's build again. And in general, it seems to be working, but of course, the bug that we already found earlier today is still in here somewhere, so there's no flakiness gone. Yeah, but occasionally it still runs through, so it seems like we actually did everything correct. And I'll cut the stream here. So of course I cannot really make a pull request out of that because clearly the code is broken at some point in some way, so I have to dig a little deeper and find out what the actual bug is there. And once we found that, then we can maybe make a pull request out of what we have tomorrow. So let's stop the stream here. I'll stick around for another 5 minutes or so. If there are questions, please post them now in the stream chat, and I'm more than happy to answer them. Commit message, start wrapping RPC server context. That's about right. Okay, seems like there are no questions today. That is also fine. Please remember to leave your comments on the request for comments for the layered RPC system. Thanks for watching. I'll stick around in the stream chat for a while longer if there are more questions coming up. And I talk to you people tomorrow. Bye.